Good afternoon. We would like to kick off the innovation strategy against global crisis, startups to resolve muted growth session. Good afternoon. I am today's master of ceremony and I am Lee Moro from the Jeju Free International City Development Center. Thank you for being here despite your very busy schedules. We are in the middle of prolonged COVID-19 outbreak and rapidly changing global crisis. Against this backdrop, we would like to share startup success stories and expert opinions for startup vitalization here in this session to find Jeju and Korea's sustainable development path forward. Let me briefly tell you how we are going to proceed. First of all, I would like to introduce today's panelists and speakers, and then we would like to invite Chairman Yang Young-chul from Jeju Free International City Development Center for the welcoming speech, which will be followed by a commemorative photo-taking time. And as the first speaker, we would like to listen to the presentation titled Startup Policy and Investment Schemes to Boost Innovation, and the presenter would be Senior Managing Director Jang Nam-jun of the Korea Venture Investment Corporation. This will be followed by the presentation of Head of Center Kim Jong-hyun of Jeju Youth Job Center titled Future Talents with Innovation Mindset and Startup Ecosystem Vitalization. And after that, we would like to have a 30-minute long discussion. And to wrap up today's session, we would like to have a short Q&A session.
그럼 제주 국제자유도시 개발센터 양영철 이사장님으로부터
With that, we would like to kick off today's session with the welcoming speech of Chairman Yang Young-chul. Please welcome Mr. Yang with a big hand.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yang Young-chul, the chairman of the Jeju Free International City Development Center. I see quite a lot of people have joined us here today. It's really a large turnout. I really want to thank you for being with us here today. And we have been able to invite excellent speakers. We have Mr. Jang Nam-jun, Senior Managing Director of the Korea Venture Investment Corp, and Mr. Kim Jong-hyun, the head of the Jeju Youth Job Center. And we also have Director General Choi Myung-dong of Jeju Special Self-Governing Province, as well as Mr. Lee Hyun-jae of the Public Policy Director of the Woo Brothers, as well as Jung Mina, the GR lead of 당근 Market. As you know, the global economy is in a difficult situation. There is the interruptions in the supply chain because of the war between Ukraine and Russia. And also because of the inflation, there is decreased demand, and that is leading to stagnated growth. And the startups, the venture enterprises that we'll be discussing, well, last year, these companies were able to create 68,000 jobs. 10th largest Korean companies, they have not been able to make as many jobs as these startups. And what this tells us is that these startups and these venture enterprises are a very important pillar of Korean economy. And in the fourth Industrial Revolution, the startups are full of innovations, and therefore they'll be able to lead us into a brighter future. And they will be able to create new culture of business and enterprises. And we, JDC, will want to be a part of that endeavor. Within our center, there are many startups, and these startups are beginning to show their potentials. And by listening to the presentations of today, as well as our panelists, and I hope that, and those of you in the audience, as well as those of you who are joining us online, if you want to have introduction to those companies and those speakers, please let us know, and then we will make sure that you have those introduction. And we are going to be building new building, and we are going to be in Seogwipo City, another building there, so that we'll be able to host a variety of startups. So we want to be able to build this ecosystem of startups, and the startups will be able, we hope, to contribute to the provincial growth, but as well as the national growth. And I want to thank everyone. I want to thank our speakers and panelists in advance for their presentations and panel discussion. And our development center will make sure that it is in a responsible leadership position and help the startup companies. Thank you very much.
대표님 환영사 감사드립니다.
Thank you for the wonderful welcoming speech. Please remain on the stage for a while, Chairman Yang. We would like to have a group photo together. I would like to invite all the speakers.
예, 감사합니다. 자리에
Thank you. You may now go back to your seat. With that, to officially begin the session in earnest, we would like to invite Senior Managing Director Jang Nam-jun of Korea Venture Investment Corporation and listen to the presentation, Startup Policy and Investment Schemes to Boost Innovation. Please welcome him with a big hand. Good afternoon. I am Jang Nam-jun of Korea Venture Investment Corporation, or KVIC. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to address you today. As you're well aware, KVIC operates fund of funds. From the perspective of FOF operator, I would like to express our thoughts regarding the startup ecosystem. This is how I'm going to proceed. I would like to briefly talk about the startup of the business startup ecosystem first. I mean structure of the ecosystem first. These are some of the related words related to the ecosystem of startup. I prepared this slide because I thought that it is important for us to have all these elements in consideration to create a healthy environment. And among them, I want to focus on investments related aspect. Normally speaking, when we talk about investment, there is venture capital which invests, and there is venture company which get invested in. If you look at the overall structure, however, the actual picture is a little more complicated. Last year, the venture capitals invested venture companies last year, and the total amount is about 7.7 trillion won, and among them, 98% was the money from the funds. Then what do I mean by fund? Venture capitals implement the investments, but these venture capitals take money from somewhere else to implement this investment. 98% of the 7.7 trillion won came from other investments. Then why did these investors let venture capitals handle their capital? I think it is very important for us to understand this. The investors invest in venture capitals because they want to earn profit. Venture capitals would invest their money in good companies and give them rewards. With this expectation, they give money to their venture capitals. And when these expectations and the results are matched, this cycle in the slide gets working. You get the wheel on the move, and we can run the ecosystem smoothly. This is the structure of the venture fund, and I think you are already familiar with this. Venture fund and investors and the venture capitals who run this investment are the main elements. Korea investment partners are one of the most notable example of this venture capital, and I said like strategic investor and financial investor to give you two big categories, but there are no clear-cut definition between these two. And motivation behind this investor is basically like financial reasons. They invest because they want to earn money, be it strategic investor or financial investor. And when the money is invested, we can create new startups such as Kakao or Uwa Brothers. And of course, we cannot say that the investment of venture capital is the largest drive behind their successes, but this certainly contributes. When I cite examples of successful startups, I talk a lot about Kakao. Venture capital invested in Kakao in 2011. And if you look at the 2010 data, the revenue was about 30 million and the net loss was huge. But then looking at this data, the venture capital decided to make an investment of 20 billion won. And what about now? The Kakao is now valued at 33 trillion won. And if you combine all the affiliates, it surpasses the market capitalization of Hyundai Motors. Kakao has grown so big, and venture capitals earned a lot. We can learn that, but there is even larger implication. If you think about the immense changes that Kakao brought to the society, we can see how kind of implication we can draw from this. Kakao changed our messaging device, messaging application. It changed our banking system and banking service. It changed the entire society. It changed the structure of our economic life and our daily life. And I think the social implication of our venture investments is here, making changes and creating changes to everyday's life. And the investment in Kakao and the growth of Kakao in similar cases can be the driving force behind the development of the society, I believe. If you want to compare the domestic and the overseas venture capital market, of course, the absolute size is different, but it is same that the venture capital is growing by more than 20% every year, and then that means startups are gaining a lot of attention. And turning to the domestic startup policies, I don't know all the countries' startup policies, but I would like to say that Korea's startup policies are well sophisticated. As for the early startups, they can get help from the Korea Institute of Startup and Entrepreneurship Development or Center for Creative Economy and Innovation. And as for the early stage investment, there is this TIPS program, or the Korea Venture Investment Corporation's fund, which is dedicated to this early stage investment. And as for the growth stage investment, the Korea Venture Investment Corporation or the Korea Growth Investment Corporation does a great job here. And TIPS program is one of the most successful programs. And so it has diversified. We had seed tips and we have scale up tips for various stages of startups. As for our company, we run FOF or Fund of Funds. And as you can see from the title, it is one type of funds, but the difference is that we do not invest directly in companies. The Fund of Funds invest in funds. That is why it's called Fund of Funds. We invest in funds, which will then invest in venture companies. And when venture companies grow, the fund will draw the benefit and reward. And some of the collected revenue will be divided back to the original investors, which would include fund of funds. Then who contributes to the FOF? 10 ministries of the government have given 8.2 trillion won worth of money in an accumulative number. And based on that, we have created 1,049 companies. I mean, more specifically, we have invested more than 1,000 of them. What's important to note here is this. So the FOF had 8.2 trillion won and invested 11 trillion won, and 24 trillion won worth of money came from the private sector. So that means twice more money when compared to the government funding came from the private sector. Among 1,049 funds that we invested, 243 of them were liquidated. And the revenue multiple was 1.3, and that means we earned money, and this earned revenue comes back to the funds that contributed to the venture capital. And through the 1,049 funds that we have invaded, 27 trillion won worth of investment was drawn to the companies that were generated by this fund that we invested in. This is how the system works, and we are a public entity established in the year of 2005, and we of course run FOF, but also we do a lot of activities to vitalize the ecosystem. Then how much money we collected back? In an cumulative number of 3.7 trillion won worth of money came back to the fund. And we have IRR of 7.7%. That means if we run the fund with the IRR of 7.7% for about 2 years, we can get 10% when compared to the original seed money that we have invested. I mean, if you run the fund for about 10 years, not 2. And since we are a public entity, we have to think about the policy purposes. We have this pattern to invest in early startup companies, and the amount of money put into these early stage companies less than a history of 3 years is growing. That means investors are willing to take risk when investing in startups. Let me share some of the local company investment cases. As for Jeju, we have this company called Monolith. This Monolith has been receiving the fund, investment of the KFOF for quite a long time, and as you can see, the number of employees have grown by 4 times, and the value of the company is now about 192 billion won. We can see a lot of similar cases like Monolith. And we can see similar examples in other regions outside of Jeju as well. We will not name them, but we can see a lot of cases where small startups grown out of the investment from KFOF is growing into a big company. So far, if you look at the past 17 years of track history, I think one pattern pops out, and it is that much of the money is concentrated in the metropolitan area but not in the local areas of Korea. Then why? There can be diverse reasons behind this concentration into the Seoul and related areas, and I tried to find out specific major reasons, and I could learn that actual distribution of companies, listed companies all across the country looks very much like this pie graph you are looking at. So it means that we can find out reason why a lot of investment are concentrated into Seoul metropolitan areas. About 70% of the companies are registered in Seoul area, and that means 70% of the investment is there. As for Jeju, the proportion of IPO companies in Jeju is about 0.3%, and their share of investment is 0.6%. Then what are the characteristics of region or local areas which get relatively higher amounts of investment? And I tried to find out reason and saw that local authorities there tend to make relatively higher investment in their local companies. As for the Daejeon and Busan, they invest a lot and they get invested a lot. The same applies to Jeju. Before 2018, investment in Jeju was minute, but local authorities started making investment in 2018, and after that, we can see the investment amount in Jeju is growing. So there is a clear pattern. So put simply, Jeju-related organizations like JDC can invest in funds, and with that fund, Jeju companies can get invested in. That would be the simple suggestion I can give you. But then there is another thing I want to say. JDC's investments might run dry and might cut off. But then even after that, startups should be able to grow, and that means we need a strong ecosystem. If JDC can continue to provide endless funds, that would be good, but there will be an end to the fund that JDC can provide to a startup. So what we have to create is an ecosystem where startups can emerge and grow utilizing market mechanism. And I believe that the funds of JDC can serve as a priming water. So the key here is healthy ecosystem. It all comes down to a healthy ecosystem. I hope that we can nurture the industries Jeju wants to specialize itself in and create infrastructure which will provide a conducive environment for startups and add investment on top of that. This will help us create healthy ecosystem. While working for the FOF to vitalize investment for small companies, I do a lot of IRs and I receive a lot of IRs. And I sometimes think this local area needs incubation or education or training more than investments. They need fundamentals. Now, only then they can run the market mechanism. They are not yet there to ask for the investment. Sometimes I think that when I visit some local area officials, I hope that Jeju can be perceived as a hub for startup creation going forward. Based on my presentation, then that would be it from me. Thank you.
강남준 본부장
So that was the presentation by Senior Managing Director Jang Nam-jun of Korea Venture Investment Corp. So another round of applause, please. And Mr. Jang
을 지원
said that we have to create an investment ecosystem to support their startups. And for the sustainable development of Jeju, we have to create a startup ecosystem in Jeju, and he provided a lot of suggestions. For me, innovative companies and startups and venture companies, all these terms sound familiar, but sometimes it feels unfamiliar. And listening to the presentation, I once again realized that innovation is not something far away. Innovation is real when it can change our daily life. Thank you.
Next presenter is Mr. Kim Jong-yeon, the head of the Jeju Youth Job Center. He's going to talk to us about the future talent with innovation mindsets and startup ecosystem vitalization. So, Mr. Kim, please. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My previous speaker talked about assistance that can enable innovation. And what I'm going to talk to you about people, because enterprises need people and the innovative ecosystems need people. So I'm going to talk about people aspect here. I believe that I'm creating the future value of Jeju. I was born in Jeju, but I graduated of schools in Seoul. The first company that I got was in Daum. Well, he had written on a bulletin board, maybe the company should relocate to Gyeongju or elsewhere. However, I recommended Jeju, and that was why Daum was able to move to Jeju. And then Nexon also was going to relocate, and I led that initiative to relocate to Jeju. And it's very important for the companies that are outside of Jeju to come to Jeju, but it's also very important that we make use of the Jeju resources. And that is why I have established a social enterprise in order to create Jeju's brand. I would attract companies, and I would also create values for the company, for the province. But I felt that everything was too slow, and I was thinking why. And that's when I saw this graph. And this talks about how new innovative technology creates a market. So the innovators will be trying something new, and early adopters would be adopters, and they would be adopted by the mass public, and that's when the market would be. And Kakao did not have the business model, and however, with time and with endurance, Kakao was able to create a large market. So the initial market. So the initiation that can create the initial market and the early adopters that can participate in these markets are very important, and that is why fund of fund exists. That is the purpose of it. And for people, we need people that work with the startups, that work with these entrepreneurs, and that's what we're trying to do at our center. And so I created that center, and now I have become the head of the center. Why do we need innovative people, talent? Because we're living in this time of transformation. How can we find the answers? And let's find the answers here. Let's look at the flies here. 100 flies. When there is they look for something to eat, and the fly that was able to find something to eat would survive. Others would just perish. However, bees, they're a very systematic organization, and so there will be working bees and the queen bee, if it has a lot of knowledge and could create a nest, and so that organization would survive. However, if the queen bee fails, and that group, that organization itself would fail. How about ant? They are very unique. They're very surprisingly, they would be able to find food in the shortest distance quite easily. And the ant, if there's nothing to eat, about 100 ants would go look for food. It's almost like flies. And once they find the food in order to come back to the nest, and they would excrete hormone, and so that people would be able, so the other ant would be able to find this hormone. Of course, smells, but with the passage of time, and the smell will disappear with time. And so the shortest distance to the food would have a strong hormonal scent, and so that the ant would follow this strong scent. So everyone would go to the food that is at the nearest location, and this is very much very similar to the enterprise ecosystem that we're talking about. At the time that we were not able to find anything. 100 moved, but however was not able to food. But with the innovators, we were able to make some innovation that was able to create a lot of response. So the butterfly in Beijing has an impact, or the hurricane in New York. This is something like that. And with this system, we have the simple and the complex systems. As in the simple system, that's where we do very simple activities. However, in the combinational system, when there's an advance to the system, but there's an answer, if it's a systematic plan, and this system would work. However, in the complex system, there's no anticipation, there's no control, and so among a lot of movements, and then the structure will be created after the fact. And so the first one would be a company with a simple structure, and the one in the middle would be large companies, and the startups are the ones in the complex systems. And in order to operate these complex systems, we need autonomous, active players. That is innovative people, innovative companies, innovative capital. And they would have to be able to follow the hormones. And through advanced interactions, they can all work towards a shared goal. And that's when innovations would be born. And how about the organizations? The organizations of the past were quite bureaucratic. And the roles were very clearly defined and assigned. And they were able to, and however, but they are changing to become more organic, where the actors will be able to be finding answers on their own. And so in this complex system, in this innovative ecosystem, so what sort of people are needed here? So what kind of people would be able to survive here? When we're trying to make something, there are two things. You may have heard of puzzle and as well as quilt, and they would be putting things together to make something. However, there's a difference between the two. In case of puzzle, there's a correct answer. In case of a quilt, there's no correct answer. And in order to put all the puzzle pieces together, you have to have discussions, you have to have strategies, you have to division of the roles and find the answer one by one. So you have to create the plans well, you have to work very efficiently. However, in terms of quilts, well, you look at the piece of rug. and then you think about what you're going to make in the long term, and then you sometimes you try to make something in a ship, but you end up with a house, but you were going to make a house, but you end up with a spacecraft. So it's a very creative process, iterative process. And so if the management is when you are finding the answers that's already defined, and the entrepreneur approach is when you are continuously finding the answers of the solutions. So if we're going to make an innovative ecosystem, then we should have people that will try something new, that will attempt things new. And so that is why we need the innovative capacities of the people in our local communities. So who are these people? And can we develop these people? There is a psychiatrist, Maslow, and I want to be able to utilize his theory. Maslow has said that people are very creative and very cooperative. However, not everyone is like that. Some are cooperative, some are not. And people have different levels of the desire. One is to survive, one is to have a stability, and there is to have a community, and then one is to be recognized, and then there is to learn something new and to create new identity, to pursue something better and to contribute to the world. That is how this structure works. And so the people who want to be innovative, they are at the top of that structure. They want to something new. They want to create something beautiful. They want to have a good influence on the world. And so these people who are autonomous, who are cooperative, and who want to contribute to the society. I mean, what can we do? What should we do? And so we should be able to help them to satisfy the basis of the requirements. And so in order to ensure that they survive, then there has to be income. And in order to satisfy the requirements of the community, there has to be the community that people can interact with. And there's going to be competition, of course. And and there has to be a support system so that when people are not even recognized, they will still be able to be fulfilled. And then these people can finally be innovative. And so in the process of innovation, we have to make sure there is a psychiatric stability. And we also have to be able to develop so-called meta recognition or meta awareness. And so these innovative people, their deficiency must be satisfied so that they have emotional satisfaction, and they should be able to have a meta awareness so that they would be recognized. And so if you would take a scanning of this QR code, and you'll be able to do this testing to see what level of attachment you have. And this is an experiment done by a psychologist. You see a monkey with milk, and then there's this monkey with yarn. And so the baby monkey, where would it go? A lot of psychologists or psychiatrists would that the monkey would go to the milk because that would help the monkey to survive. However, the monkey went to the place where they were yarned. When it was really, really hungry, it would go to the next one, and then they would drink milk and then go back to the yarn. And so for people, for animals, this psychological stability or the security is very important. And then there was this case of orphanage in Romania. During the dictatorship, they had this policy of having a lot of children. And the government would raise the children at the orphanages. And the children were not supposed to be, of course, not like children. I mean, there were no physical affection shown to these children at all. And when these children were adopted to the rest of the world, and according to the research, it was found out that these children were not able to develop this relationship. And that is because they were not able to develop this affectionate relationship. If you don't have that sort of affection, you are not going to be able to develop socially. And so that is why the psychologists were doing this research to see who would not be able to develop such attachment. And so in that process, the children that had good love relationship, that affectionate relationship, and they would be able to accept themselves and accept others. And those that are not, they would have emotional instability, and they would not be able to establish good social relationship. If you don't have good social relationship, your intelligence and your creativity would be low. And so then, however, this instability would also be found. And you can overcome. this sort of deficiency. That means you do, for that, and you need close-knit community. And at Google, they have started up a team that were having very good performance. And they have found out that psychological security is the factor that contributed the most to the performance. And so for our children, for youth, for those that are working at the startups, how are we going to provide a psychological security? We have to provide the community-based security. And people want to be recognized. And they also want to be able to recognize themselves. Why? In the beginning, if they are not recognized by their parents, they would not be able to survive. And so we want to be recognized by others. However, if you seek to be recognized by others, then you have this fear of failure, and then you become very result oriented, and then they would lead to a sort of fixed mindset, according to psychologists. And for those that put emphasis on the process and that believe that the growth could be done by efforts, well, these are mindsets that put emphasis on growth. And so we need to have a combination of these two mindsets. And the people who should be able to continue to work so that they will be able to grow. And so that sort of mindset is something that we need to induce in people. And so we need good mentors. We need to have good consultants around the people that will help people to develop this sort of mindset. And in that process, the people will be able to create the innovations. What innovations also have to go through a channel of fears. You have to overcome the fears in order to be innovative. And in order to overcome the fear, you need a psychological security as well as a growth mindset. And lastly, I want to talk about meta-awareness. And so this is an objective way of looking at oneself. And this is very important to be able to look at oneself objectively. And it has to be something explained in words. It has to be, when it's done, when you can persuade others, then you will be able to look at yourself objectively. And so if it's not a passive way of learning. It has to be, there has to be a lot of persuasion, that has explanation, that has to be active education. And it has to be more than simple persuasion. You should be able to create a plan, implement a plan, and monitor, and assess the results. And through that process, a person becomes able to create something new and be able to implement it, and also be able to control the feelings, also interact with the feelings of others. And that is what this is about. And the people that have, such capability, they are able to collaborate, they are able to cooperate. And this is almost like soccer players. Soccer players, in order to play well, they should be able to see what other players are doing. And so good, innovative people are like soccer players. And so we have to have people who are, people-oriented, and also be able to grow within the community. And so there is this emotional aspect that we have to think about. And furthermore, we need people who are able to be considered and be able to establish a network with people. And that's what we're trying to do at our center. And we are trying to develop people based on 4 factors. And we provide them income, we provide them education and training. And so that's the kind of system we have. We have about 6 months of training. This is a project-based. And for 6 months, we help them to find their career. For about 12 months, we give them about 1.5 million Korean won per month so that they can receive integrated support. And so we choose about 150 people, everyone. And about 90% of them are able to graduate, and about 70% do receive recommendations to develop their careers. And the companies that have embraced these talents are very happy with these people. And some become entrepreneurs, and some are, even if they do not become entrepreneurs, they are able to contribute to the entrepreneurs. And as when these entrepreneurs set up the companies, and they would need people, and that means they would need our center to be able to produce the people that would be able to work at their companies. And so I believe that with inside, we have the potential to create the future. And with that, I hope that I will be able to contribute to the betterment of Jeju and of you. Thank you very much.
해주신
Thank you. Please give another big round of applause to the head of Center Kim Jong-hyun for the presentation. Mr. Kim talked about the sustainable startup ecosystem and said that we need innovation talent for this, and he provided multifaceted methodology to nurture those innovative talent. He's in the education film scene and he just skipped the attachment test. I think he's very good at triggering people's interest in what he's trying to say. After arranging the stage, we would like to begin the discussion session. All the discussants, please come up to the stage, and all the audience members, please bear with us a few more minutes.
토론자분들께서는 마스크를
Discussants, feel free to take off your mask while talking while on the stage.
그럼 자리
Please, I think all the discussants are on the stage, and with that, we would like to begin the discussion session. And now I will hand the microphone over to our moderator, General Director Kwak Jin-gyu of Jeju Free International City Development Center. Moderator, please.
JDC 곽
Yes, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kwak Jin-gyu of Jeju Free International City Development Center. We need to discuss about innovation strategies to deal with global crisis, startups to resolve muted growth. We have new government. However, the policy in regards to youth and the startup development still persists. I mean, this is a policy that has to have the continuum. And so we, in that context, we're going to be discussing, where Jeju should be headed. And in the new provincial government of Jeju, they have this commitment is to relocate 20 stock market listed companies to Jeju. And we believe if that commitment, that platform is implemented, that's going to have a very positive impact on the startup ecosystem of Jeju. We don't have much time, so we will begin right away with discussion. So we're going to be asking Mr. Choi Myung-dong of Jeju, a special self-governing province, to do the discussion. So about relocating 20 stock market listed companies to Jeju. Can you tell us about this? And also, I understand you are responsible for economy and jobs. So can you tell us about the provincial government policies in regards to enterprises?
Thank you. I am Choi Myung-dong from Jeju Special Self-Governing Province. About attracting listed companies. Including Connex Market, we have 9 listed companies in Jeju, and as for Kospi and Kosdaq, we have 8. There are about 700,000 listed companies in Korea, and limited companies, and there are 10,000 of them in Jeju. And as for the listed companies, the number is far smaller, about 2,500. That means we are aiming to have 20 listed companies in Jeju, and the current tally is 9. That means we have 11 more to go. As you're well aware, doing this is going to be a tough task. And nurturing companies require transparency, health, and stability of these companies. So it's definitely not an easy job to nurture them into listed companies. However, utilizing venture companies and the Jeju's companies, we take survey as to see what companies want to be listed, and we diagnose their capabilities, and we see would-be listed companies and potential listed companies and early phase list companies and so on and so forth. On top of the universal support we can provide to all companies, we provide selective support to the companies who want to list themselves, who want to be listed. And starting from next year, we will implement this support program in earnest. Soka got listed in August. And we are thinking of financially investing in companies that want to get listed as well. By 2026, we want to make sure that we reach the target of 20. It might be tough, but laying foundation is always a good thing, so we will work on this. And here I want to talk about some institutions. In 2006, the Jeju Special Self-Governing Province was launched, and the SME ministry was absorbed into the self-governing province, and about 16, 17 years have passed. And now the Ministry of SMEs have been conducting some budget programs and projects to support the startup ecosystem. And I think we are kind of excluded from this ministry level support, so we are making continuous requests, and we will make sure that Jeju can duly receive its fair share of SME support at the government level. As for the SME promotion at the Jeju level, we are promoting and doing a lot of projects, especially about youth startup. The Ministry of SMEs make financial investment of 7.5 billion won and turned 6 universities, is planning to turn 6 universities into a startup hub university. And as for Jeju, we are part of the Honam province, and Jeonbuk province was designated as the hub in this region. So Jeju is 6 area plus alpha, and so we take up alpha there. And we will make more effort at the governance, self-governing provincial level to boost the startup ecosystem here in Jeju as well. In Seogwipo area, we are establishing Startup Town, and with the Local Innovation Fund, starting from this year till 2024, we plan to put 6 billion won and use it in linkage with the FOF and provide a matching investment of 12 billion won. This financial investment is one thing. And also, if you look at the Startup Promotion Act, the Ministry of SMEs run Startup Promotion Fund. And this fund allows the venture capitals to make loans. But making loans is possible at the national level, but not at the local level. Jeju is currently a difficult area to make a startup, but it has a lot of potential. So I hope that we can improve this regulation in this regard and make a environment where Jeju's funds can be utilized to provide a loan as well. And in this regard, I will continue to pay attention to this startup issue at the provincial government level. Thank you.
뭐 예정에 없던 박수까지 받으셨으니까 책임이 막.
Thank you. You got applauded. That means you have a heavy responsibility to fulfill their needs. Are there any special characteristics? I believe that there are special characteristics that Jeju can only provide when it comes to startup ecosystem. Then it is up to us to make good use of these characteristics and make it into a benefit for companies, then I would like to invite Director Lee Hyun-jae from Ua Brothers.
처음에는
Well, Ua Brothers, I understand their capital to begin with was only 30 million Korean won, and now their assets or size is about 5 trillion won. It's a company that was acquired by a German company. It's no longer a unicorn company because it's acquired by a foreign company. It's almost like a BTS of the startups. So with Hyun-jae Lee, I want to focus our dialogue on Jeju. So in this overall ecosystem, what do you think is the positioning of Jeju? So can you objectively assess Jeju's ecosystem for startups? And also, can you tell us, what needs to be increased, what needs to be improved? So if you could just give us your opinion on that. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lee Hyun-jae of the Ua Brothers. Well, you just said that our company is like a BTS of the startup ecosystem. Thank you so much for that remarks. Well, we have a lot of thoughts. I mean, a lot of Naver, Down, Kakao. Well, you've seen how those companies grew. And startup companies, as you know, have been grabbing attention. And I think that is because of the call of the time. Because startup companies are companies that have just begun their business. So why do we call these companies startups? And also, why do we need startups? And we do have this issue of joblessness. And jobs are not being created fast enough. And in the past, the jobs were created by large companies, and it was the state that was leading the growth. But now we have to move to knowledge-based economy. So we do the paradigm shift to go from the factory or the stack-based economy to knowledge-based economy. And so in that process, I think that it's possible for Korean companies, for Korean startups, to take up good positioning. So these startups can create jobs, can help with the environmental issues, can help the people with the disabilities, and also create new markets. And so the startups can find answers to the existing problems. And so I believe that going forward, startups will continue to receive attention from various economic players. And Jeju, I think, has an excellent infrastructure. It's a volcanic island, so it's a beautiful island. In last August, I was here in Jeju for about a month and worked in Jeju for about a month. And before then, I wasn't so sure whether I would be able to work in Jeju. The young generation, they all want to come to Jeju and work here. They want to be able to balance life and family. And they think that Jeju will enable such balancing. And I think that Jeju has the necessary infrastructure to enable that. And Jeju has a very unique culture, as you know, where Jeju is still known as a tourist destination. But the infrastructure in the tourism could be utilized for other purposes. And our two speakers talked about capital and about people. So when you have the capital and people, yes, you can create the infrastructure and you can create the ecosystem. I think the provincial government would have to, of course, play an important role. As Mr. Che had said, well, I think it's almost like raising a child. You need a whole village to be able to raise a child. And I think the same thing applies to raising a startup. You need government, you need local government, you need youth, you need capital. You need to have all of this in order to build sound ecosystem where these startups will be able to thrive. And I think so, and Jeju should provide support needed to build such an ecosystem. As a stakeholder of a governance, I believe that public entities have roles to play that is including on the government, and the citizens and schools can also play important roles here. So when all of these come together, a company, a startup may be able to grow. Thank you.
Thank you. You made a very brief but compact comment with tons of the necessary advices. Thank you. Next, let me hand over to dear Lee Jung-mina of 당근 Market. By the way, I'm a big fan of your app and platform. It started as a trading platform for workers working in Pangyo. It started off as a very small app, but I believe that it is now valued at about 3 trillion won, right? It is a unicorn company in Korea. As far as I understand, the user is now about 15 million in the UK, US, Canada, and Japan are the new market of yours. Zoning into Jeju, I want to ask this question to you. Sometimes I see 당근 Market launching new service for the first time in Jeju. Why do you choose Jeju as the region to launch your service? And also, from the startup's point of view, what would be the beauty or the attractiveness of Jeju? Hello, I'm Jung-mina from 당근 Market. And we have this BTS of startup right next to us. So compared to that, we are still a humble, small company. The employees are about 330, and the user kind of increased significantly over the last 2 years. And the MAU is about 18 million, and the total number of users surpassed 30 million. And like you said, we started off with a small app called Pangyo Jangto, roughly translates to Pangyo Marketplace. We thought that we wanted to become a local community platform. And we aim to invite 300 people or 500 people up on our platform to open our application for the specific region or community. And we started working in 2015, and by 2018, we could operate all across the country. And after that, we could grow exponentially. And in the process of doing so, we garnered a lot of data from across the country, and we could see that the utilization rate of Jeju is among the highest. So I think I have to thank you. I love Jeju. 당근 Market loves Jeju. And when we recently launched 당근 Pay, we did tests in Jeju for quite a long time. It kind of ended not in a desirable way, but I learned that here people still use a lot of cash and some tokens and the vouchers. Anyhow, the participation rate of residents in using 당근 Market is really high, and I see that almost every resident uses 당근 Market here. And I was surprised that not only senior citizens, but also all the entire population of Jeju do not have high entry barrier to utilizing this IT application. Surprisingly, and they do not resist the idea of using something new. And the utilization of Jeju can only be matched by Seocho area in Seoul, which is really a developed region of Seoul. So Jeju is now being used as a testbed from 당근 Market perspective. And also, the beauty of platform is that we can connect a lot of things, and we are looking into the possibility of creating this grocery platform, Jeju. We dive deep into each community, like smaller local area, and that means we can provide catered benefit to each community. So please tell me and let me know where I can go and find the local beauty of specific region or area that we are trying to operate. We get a lot of suggestions, but at the Jeju province level, would there be any possibility for us to get access to startup materials or the introduction materials for each area? In that case, I think it will be better for us to cooperate. To wrap up, the beauty of Jeju in attracting listed company. Honestly speaking, we need more people to bring headquarters back to Jeju. In order to establish headquarters in one region, the region should be habitable, right? I think that is the most important factor. But just like Director Lee has just mentioned, we had a lot of fair share of our employees living in Jeju, staying in Jeju for workation, but this doesn't lead them to completely move to Jeju. We are working from home, but sometimes we have to get together in office and have a face-to-face meeting, right? And if we can iron out some of the difficulties that prevents us from doing this, I think we can envision a better future where you can reach the 20 target of yours. Thank you.
우리 정
Well, Ms. Jung, I have another question for you.
그럼
In that case, although might not happen overnight, there are a lot of startups who are operating in Jeju. So, to startups who are currently operating in Jeju or who are planning to operate in Jeju, what do you think is the biggest necessity? What would be the biggest thing that they need? Habitable environment. For example, education is a real concern for families. Developers are core talents and companies move following talent. That is why there are a lot of companies operating in Gangnam area, specifically Daeheran area. And I think Jeju can think of two ways. First, you have to see if there are a lot of good talent in Jeju. Second, or if not, you have to be able to induce bright talent in Seoul to live in Jeju by providing the right environment. I think these are two critical things. Thank you. Mr. Che, back to you. There are diverse needs when you do businesses. And to activate youth startup business and to provide space for youth startup, aren't there any policies or the programs run at the government, provincial government level or any other plans? As for the youth startup vitalization, centering on youth startup, we provide the guarantees. And we provide support when it comes to guarantees by exempting them from the commission fees. And also, in last September, we had an agreement with the Settlement Authority of Korea. While running K-Camp in 2020, we selected 8 venture companies. K-Camp is an accelerator program, and after running this accelerator program, we wanted to see what are the scale of programs available to nurture them further. And if financial support is not provided, we cannot imagine these companies to scale up. And that is the area where we are trying to find solution. As for Seogwipo, we are establishing Startup Town. And we are planning that we will finish building this by 2024 by investing about 22 billion won. And right near that area, we are designing the knowledge industry center as well. And I believe that this will be a good space for youth to come in and run their own business. Thank you. I'll be looking forward to it. Then Mr. Kim.
그뭐
Well, in your presentation, you talked about importance of people, of talents. And in case of your center, you provide income while providing education and training. And I believe that those who start startups, they need to have this spirit of hungriness. But if you provide income, people will not be as starved for a success. Okay, so can you talk about this? So how to develop talent? I talked about different psychology. I mean, you do need some sort of stability. And you need investment system rather than just support system. That is in order to allow for more autonomy of a company. So you would, for companies to submit a business plan, and based on the business plan, you would provide the support. Well, startup companies do not like that. And investment. So if you, it's up to managers, to decide what to, how to invest. So when you are developing entrepreneurs, when you are developing people who would be starting startups, well, I'm going to give you like a $50 million, a million won, and so give us your business plan and your marketing costs. It should not go, beyond, so and so. And so there has to be autonomy. And of course, so if you do provide them with a revenue income, you do allow them to become more active. So and so we make sure that people do not starve. So they would be, free to try to do something. So in 3 years, about 50 different companies were established. And whether you start a company or whether you join a company, well, that is for personal gains, people say. However, in the innovative ecosystem, the society should ensure that there is a stream of revenue. And the youth, and if they are not able to find their place in the society, where they find it quite difficult to find their place in the world, in the society later on. And so if you could just provide income early on and then allow them to look for their work. And so the society should be responsible for the risks of doing something innovative. And if there are good results from the innovative activities, well, it should be returned to the society. And we have worked over 400 youth, and we have learned that this sort of system provides for better youth.
잘 들어왔어.
Thank you. You are such a good speaker. Then to Senior Managing Director Chang, I think it's time for us to talk about money. For companies, like financing or attracting investment is very important. When you can't eat, however smart you are, you cannot live, right? For a company, it is vital to attract investment to survive. You said that to nurture the ecosystem, the Jeju level, there should be more investment made in the ecosystem. Can you just elaborate on that? And once again, give us the reason why we have to make investment at the Jeju level. And the second question is, when it comes to the KVIC, you provide money to the overseas VCs and let them invest in the Korean companies. Some of the projects are like that. And in some rare cases, you do direct investment, right? So there are a lot of sideline projects that you do outside of operating FOF. And in these sideline projects, aren't there any way for Jeju companies to benefit from these sideline projects? What are the qualifications? Are there any ways? Expansion of public investment, like I said before, should not continue like on and on and on. When the FOF was first created, the reason behind this creation of FOF was this. The government should show that the private sector, that there is this mechanism and we can make this running. The government leads the venture capital, and the government wanted to set the conducive environment and set the rule books on which private sector can come in and play. And also, when the regional investment for the venture capital area is not that strong enough, we use FOF as a priming water to invite more local government players to make an active movement into this youth startup ecosystem. In some regions or some areas are very active in making public investment. That is why I said that there should be investment made at the Jeju special governing provincial level. And about the program you mentioned, where we invest in foreign venture companies, which invests in Korean companies, the gist is the same. We have tried multiple projects and programs to help vitalize Korean companies, but only a few of them were successful. What was best was this. When foreign venture capitals invest in Korean companies, they see the likelihood of this specific Korean company entering in their countries. That means from the Korean company beneficiary perspective, they can have an easy shortcut to enter into the foreign market. That is why we invest in foreign venture companies, and the performance is really good actually. And as for the direct investment of KVIC, you mentioned how can Jeju companies benefit from these projects. These are not just simple direct investments. It is matching investment that befits the government policy. When venture capital make an investment, FOF matches the investment and give more investment to the recipient company. And there are specific types that can receive this types of investment. And one is R&D, and the second is the company which can create a lot of jobs. They file for this matching investment. And venture capital should invest in Jeju company first and then apply for matching fund to KVIC, and only then Jeju company can utilize this program that you just said. Thank you. After all, Jeju companies should be able to grow strong, to sustain themselves. Only then I think things will be sustainable. Until things settle down, I believe that support from the administration sector and the talent nurturing would be required. The time is running out, so to Director Lee, I have a final question to you.
주고 싶.
So this is going to be the final question to Mr. Lee Hyun-jae. So Woo-ha brothers, well, is quite famous online for its a very unique method of developing good talents. So related to talent development, and I think your company was able to become such a success because of your unique talent development. So can you introduce us to your talent development program? And can you also talk to us how such a system could be applied to local autonomy like Jeju? Well, our company, the Woo-ha brothers, became successful because of the market conditions. And also, internally, we believe is because of the culture that we were able to foster within our company. And we have thought as a group, as to what sort of culture should be developed. For instance, there are 11 ways to work well in Songpa district. So we have I think this is an information that has been shared over 10,000 times on Facebook. And the chairperson of Samsung Electronics wanted to learn about this. Hyundai Car and the vice minister of the local autonomy wanted to learn about this. So they wanted to learn about our organization. Just because a startup does not mean that you have a horizontal organizational structure. And also, when we work, we would have a vertical organization, but on a daily basis, we would have a horizontal work organization, because as a startup, we do not have enough resources. And for us to do testing in a very short period of time, we need to be able to fail very quickly. And that's what startups do. And in order to do so, we need our unique culture. So you need to be able to develop such a culture within your organization. And that's the way for startups to compete with the established companies, with the large companies. And to develop such a culture, well, you need good people, good talent. You need extraordinary talents. And those talents, so, when we interview such a people, we would listen to them. I mean, your company provides good working conditions and good pay. But rather than people talking about them, we want people who would be assimilated into our organization. Some companies want extraordinary people, but what we want are people who are willing to work with us, who are going to be a part of our culture. And I think that's the way for the organization to develop good culture and to be able to share the feeling of achievement and the feeling of happiness. And I think such a culture enabled our company to be so successful. And based on this philosophy, we developed our methodologies. And here at our company, it's the person who gave order that is going to take the responsibility. When somebody fails, we're not going to criticize anybody. We're not going to use, KPIs to sanction or censure anybody. Of course, somebody has to account for failures. However, that accountability has to lie with the top management. And however, we should allow the employees and staff to work more proactively. And I think this is a strength that startups have in order to compete against large companies. Thank you.
Thank you. You highlight teamwork. In a way, that's a very Korean culture, so I think I could relate more to what you said. The ball comes down to those who make decisions. I myself make decisions and I take responsibility. This feels as a burden, but I feel like my decision and the responsibility that I borne will now be transferred to the chairman, so I'm kind of relieved. Thank you. We were given 80 minutes, but the 80-minute is up. We could go on, but because of the time constraints, I think we have to wrap up here. To finish off, I just want to say this. In one university of the United States, an interesting survey was conducted. They saw top-class artists, sport athletes, and they wanted to look at the first teacher of these world-class artists and athletes. Coincidentally, they were just random teachers in some rural areas. But they had three commonalities. One, they made their students find the activity fun. And second, they were very encouraging. And third, they provided support to make all the activities sustainable. Listening to that, I thought that maybe we can become that teacher, that random teacher in rural area for our startups here in Jeju. We provide care to them even after they fail. We provide good environment, enabling environment and support until the day when Jeju companies become global companies. With that as a final note, we would like to wrap up today's session. Thank you for listening.
예. 예, 그 플로어 질문을 원래
We were going to take questions from the floor, but the time is up. I wonder if it's okay if we took one question from the floor. I guess yes, maybe one question. So, anybody have a question? So, ladies and gentlemen, if you do have a question, please let us know. If you would raise your hand, then we will give you the opportunity to ask questions. And only those that have burning questions should raise his or her hand to ask a question. If not, I think that's okay. I believe that the explanation was so thorough that there are no questions. So with that, we would like to conclude this session. I would like to ask you to give a round of applause to all our presenters and discussants as well as the moderator. So we conclude this session.